Crystal chandeliers spilled golden light across the grand hall, every glittering droplet catching the music of violins. The marble floors gleamed like mirrors, slick with champagne where careless glasses had already been tipped. Laughter rolled through the ballroom, sharp and cutting, as jeweled she-wolves paraded in gowns that cost more than Mira would see in her lifetime. At 22, Mira should have felt invisible in such splendor. She tried to keep her eyes down, her back straight, her hands steady as she carried a tray of crystal flutes. But invisibility was never granted to her kind. Human. Wolfless. In this kingdom of wolves, she was nothing but a tolerated shadow, useful for carrying drinks, for scrubbing floors, for being ridiculed by those born with fur and fangs. "Careful, wolfless trash," one of the young Lunas hissed as Mira passed. The words were meant to slice, and they did. Myra's fingers trembled, but she tightened her grip on the tray, refusing to let even one glass clink. She would not give them more reasons to sneer. Whispers followed her like wolves in the dark. She shouldn't even be here. Why do they let humans serve at royal gatherings? Pathetic. Mira pressed her lips together, swallowing the shame like bitter medicine. Every step she took was a battle between pride and survival. She made it almost halfway across the floor when a cold voice rang out. "Oops." A Luna draped in scarlet silk, Celeste, daughter of one of the wealthiest alphas, extended her arm deliberately. The sweep of her hand sent red wine spilling in an elegant arc across Myra's pale uniform. It struck like blood, blooming across her chest and stomach. The laughter came instantly. Harsh. Cruel. Bouncing off marble until it filled the room like thunder. Mira froze, tray wobbling in her hands, the stain soaking into her skin. Her cheeks burned, but she kept her chin lifted. She would not let them see her cry. Not tonight. Not ever. Celeste's smile was dagger-sharp. "Oh dear. How clumsy of you. Do be more careful." The crowd rippled with amusement, eyes gleaming with contempt. Mira bowed her head, muttering apologies she didn't mean, trying to retreat before the laughter could cut any deeper. But then, a hush swept the hall. It wasn't natural silence, it was stolen. It was seized. The laughter died, the whispers froze, and Mira felt the change in the air before she dared to look up. Through the sea of predators in silk and diamonds, she felt it, burning like fire against her skin. A gaze. Ancient. Unrelenting. Amber eyes. They locked onto her across the ballroom, pinning her in place as surely as iron chains. Power radiated from their source, thrumming through the marble, silencing even the boldest lips. Time itself seemed to still. The Alpha King had arrived. And he was staring at her. The mahogany-paneled study was quiet, save for the restless scrape of claws against the floorboards. Alpha King Xander's wolf paced inside him, restless, agitated, a storm caged beneath his skin. Reports lay scattered across his massive desk, rogue attacks on the borders, alliances crumbling, and letters dripping with political flattery. He had dismissed them all. None of it soothed the gnawing hunger that clawed at his chest. Xander leaned back in his chair, broad shoulders tense beneath a tailored black suit that had been abandoned hours ago. He wore only a shirt now, sleeves rolled to his elbows, veins corded in his arms as he gripped a glass of untouched whiskey. He didn't drink. Not when his wolf was like this. Not when control was already slipping. Another proposal sat unopened at his elbow, marked with the seal of a powerful northern pack. The 5th this month. Each one had been the same, noble daughters paraded before him, their fathers whispering promises of power, bloodlines, and wealth. Each one had been turned away. "Enough," Xander muttered to the empty room, his deep voice echoing like a growl. His wolves snarled in agreement. None of them were right. None of them could quiet the restless ache inside him. The door opened, and his beta entered, a tall, scarred wolf who had served at his side since childhood. Another rejection? He asked dryly, glancing at the unopened letter. Xander's jaw tightened. I don't need another political bride. I need, he trailed off, unable to finish. His wolf supplied the word he refused to say aloud. Mate. The beta studied him carefully. It's been years, Alpha. The council grows impatient. You've conquered lands, kept peace, crushed every threat. But they say even a king is weak without a queen at his side. Xander rose abruptly, the movement sharp, dangerous. I don't care what they say. His golden eyes burned with frustration. I won't tie myself to a wolf I feel nothing for. My bond will not be forged by politics. His wolf growled again, louder this time, pushing against his ribs. The beta tilted his head. Then what do you want? For a long moment, Xander didn't answer. He stared out the tall windows at the sprawling city bathed in moonlight, his chest rising and falling with slow, measured breaths. Then he spoke, voice low and raw. Find me someone real. The beta bowed, but before he could leave, Xander's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen. The moonlight gala tonight, Alpha, the beta reminded him. Every unmated she-wolf in the kingdom will be there. Perfect opportunity, if you'd only look. Xander's lip curled. He had no interest in another parade of painted smiles. But his wolf stirred restlessly at the mention. His pulse quickened, a flicker of anticipation sparking against his will. For the first time in months, the beast inside him whispered one word. Go. The orchestra swelled, violins slicing through the air like silver threads. Diamonds glittered on the throats and wrists of the elite as they danced beneath the golden glow of chandeliers. The moonlight gala was in full bloom, a celebration of wealth and bloodlines, a spectacle meant to dazzle the kingdom. And somewhere in that sea of silk and arrogance, Mira moved quietly, balancing her silver tray as though her life depended on it. Her shoes pinched, her uniform clung damp against her skin where the wine stain still lingered, but she didn't falter. She couldn't. One mistake tonight and she'd be thrown out, blacklisted, left to starve in a city that never forgave weakness. She wove between couples, head bowed, her ears burning as the whispers began again. That's the human girl. Pathetic, isn't she? Imagine serving drinks when you could be serving a mate. Mira bit her tongue, forcing herself to keep walking. Each word pressed like a thorn into her skin. Still, she clung to dignity, holding the tray steady with trembling arms. But fate had other plans. As she passed near the dais where the noble Lunas gathered, her shoe caught on the edge of a discarded program. Her body pitched forward. The tray tilted. And before she could stop it, a cascade of champagne arced through the air, splashing across Luna Celeste's pale silk gown. The gasp that followed was sharp, collective. A ripple of silence rolled across the ballroom, cutting through music and laughter alike. Celeste's face twisted with fury, her jeweled hand clutching at the wet fabric. You clumsy little human. Her voice cracked like a whip. Do you know what this dress cost? Myra's heart pounded. Her throat tightened. She opened her mouth to apologize, but her words died under the weight of Celeste's glare. The silence grew heavy, expectant. Dozens of eyes turned toward her. Guards began to move from the corners, their black uniforms stark against the marble, closing in on her like predators circling prey. No, please no. Myra's thoughts spiraled, panic choking her as she took a step back. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Every humiliation, every whispered slur, every night spent praying for a way out crashed down on her in one cruel moment. The guards reached for her arms. And then... Stop. The voice shattered the air, deep and commanding, vibrating through stone and bone alike. Every head turned as one. At the far end of the ballroom, the Alpha King rose from his throne. Broad-shouldered, tall as legend, his amber eyes burned like fire as they locked on Mira. For a heartbeat, the world seemed to collapse around her, leaving only that gaze. His presence was overwhelming, power coiled in every line of him, dangerous and magnetic. And then, his words. Low. Absolute. Bring that girl, he commanded. His lips curled into something primal, a half-snarl, half-smile. She's mine. The ballroom held its breath. Chandeliers flickered as though the air itself trembled under the weight of the Alpha King's words. She's mine. Myra's knees threatened to buckle. Guards on either side seized her arms, guiding her forward toward the throne dais. Every step felt like a march to execution, hundreds of eyes slicing into her, heavy with scorn, envy, disbelief. The silver tray was ripped from her trembling hands, leaving her fingers empty and cold. Her heart thundered against her ribs. Why me? Why would he? As she drew closer, his scent hit her. It was nothing like the sharp perfumes or cloying colognes that clouded the Gala. It was raw, elemental, pine forests after rain, leather worn by years of use, and beneath it all, something ancient and untamed. The power of a predator who ruled not by chance, but by sheer dominance. Her breath caught. For a moment, she couldn't move, couldn't think. Her body recognized him before her mind could understand. The Alpha King. Xander. He rose to his full height as she reached the steps, towering over her, shoulders broad enough to block out the glittering hall behind him. His gaze raked over her, sharp and assessing, but beneath the cold calculation glimmered something hotter. His wolf's voice thrummed in his chest, low and certain, mate. You're human, he said at last. Not a question. A statement. His eyes narrowed, as though trying to reconcile what instinct had already decided. Human. Myra's lips parted, but no words came. Her pulse hammered so loudly it drowned out the whispers now filling the hall. Impossible, someone hissed. It cannot be, another muttered. The disbelief cracked into open outrage. From the crowd, Luna Celeste's shrill voice cut through like broken glass. This is madness. You cannot mate a servant. She's nothing, wolfless trash. If this is a joke, it's cruel. Laughter bubbled nervously in corners, though no one dared laugh too loudly under Xander's stare. His eyes flicked to Celeste, blazing gold with a power that made her flinch back despite her bravado. I am Alpha King, he said, his voice cold iron. And I mate whom I choose. The words rolled like thunder, silencing dissent in their wake. But his gaze returned to Mira, softer now, though no less intense. He stepped down one stair, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating off him. Run, little wolf, he murmured, the faintest curl of challenge in his lips. I'll give you a head start. Mira blinked, confused, her heart lurching. What? But Xander's eyes glowed with primal hunger, his wolf rising to the surface. The ballroom dissolved around them, the guests, the music, the marble, and in that instant, she understood. This was not a command to humiliate. This was the beginning of a chase. The command still echoed in Myra's ears as the ballroom doors burst open. The night air hit her like a slap, cold, sharp, laced with the perfume of roses and damp earth. She didn't think. She ran. Her slippers pounded across the palace gardens, silver trays, and spilled wine already forgotten. The moon bathed everything in pale light, towering hedges cut into labyrinthine walls, fountains whispering in the dark, roses stretching thorny arms into her path. She ducked, stumbled, shoved herself forward, breath tearing at her lungs. Behind her, a sound split the night. Bones snapping. A roar of power. Then the earth-shaking rhythm of pause. Her stomach clenched. She didn't need to look back. She knew. The Alpha King had shifted. The growl that followed was low, rolling, predatory. Her heart lurched in terror, but another pulse beat beneath it, something hot, something confusing, something she dared not name. Her uniform caught on thorns. Fabric tore, leaving lines of blood on her arm. She hissed at the sting, but pressed harder into the maze, each corner a gamble, each shadow a possible dead end. The scent of roses mixed with the metallic tang of her own blood, and she prayed it wouldn't draw him faster. It did. The heavy thud of paws grew nearer, closer, relentless. A massive shadow flitted between hedges, a hunter's silhouette. The ground itself seemed to quake beneath his weight. Myra's lungs burned. She veered left, sprinting past a fountain, the spray catching moonlight like shattered glass. She thought she'd gained a sliver of ground, until a snarl cut her off, vibrating through her bones. He was toying with her. Her chest ached. Fear screamed at her to keep running, but another voice, softer, buried deep inside, whispered something else. Stop. Turn. Face him. She stumbled into a clearing at last, the garden parting to reveal a lily pond shimmering under the moon. Her legs faltered. There was nowhere left to go. She spun around, back pressed to the water's edge, chest heaving. And then he emerged. The black wolf stepped into the clearing, massive, terrifyingly beautiful. His fur was midnight itself, his eyes burning amber, locked on her as if nothing else existed. He padded forward, slow, deliberate, each step a promise that she was already caught. Mira raised her chin, trembling but defiant. I'm nobody special, she shouted, voice breaking with fear and fury. I'm nothing. The wolf stilled. Muscles rippled beneath his dark coat. Then, before her eyes, the impossible happened. Bones cracked, fur receded, and the Alpha King stood before her once more, naked, powerful, carved from shadow and moonlight. You're wrong, Xander said, voice rough from the shift, his gaze scorching her where she stood. You're everything I'd been searching for. The gardens had grown hushed after the chase, as though the night itself held its breath. Moonlight poured through the silk curtains of the pavilion, casting long silver shadows across the marble floor. Myra's heart still thundered, her lungs raw from running, yet she stood frozen, unable to tear her gaze away from the man before her. Xander. The Alpha King loomed only a few paces away, chest rising and falling with the remnants of his shift. His bare skin glistened faintly with sweat, muscles cut like stone beneath the soft light. His amber eyes had not left hers, not once, since he'd spoken the words that unraveled her world. You're human, he murmured again, quieter this time, more to himself than to her. His wolf pressed against his skin, restless, eager, snarling its single truth, mate. Mira shook her head, her voice trembling. This doesn't make sense. I'm no one. Just a servant. A human. Xander stepped closer, and the air seemed to shiver with his presence. And yet, my wolf chooses you. She flinched when his hand lifted, then froze as he brushed a stray lock of hair from her cheek. The touch was shockingly gentle, nothing like the predator who had hunted her moments before. Her breath caught. Why me? A muscle ticked in his jaw. Because I've searched for years. Fought wars. Rejected alliances. And none of it silenced the emptiness inside me. But the moment I saw you, his eyes darkened, his voice lowering into a rasp. Everything changed. Myra's throat tightened. Fear warred with something else, something dangerous, a pull she didn't understand, a heat coiling low in her belly. Xander exhaled sharply, as though making a decision. I will give you a choice. Her eyes widened. A choice? Yes. He straightened, the weight of a king in every line of him. Stay. Be my mate. My queen. Stand beside me, and I will protect you from everything that seeks to harm you. He paused, gaze burning into hers. Or walk away. Take enough gold to vanish from this world forever. No one will touch you. No one will ever find you. The words sliced through her chest, colder than any insult. Leave, or become queen of werewolves. How could either be real? His voice dropped lower, raw with an emotion that didn't fit his ruthless reputation. But if you stay, you must understand, they will try to destroy you. They will never forgive me for choosing you. Her throat closed. She could still hear Celeste's venom, the laughter of the crowd, the countless whispers calling her nothing. What chance did she have against wolves who lived to tear her down? Her hand trembled as she lifted it to his face, brushing lightly against his cheek. His skin was hot beneath her fingertips. What if I'm not strong enough, she whispered, her voice breaking. Xander caught her hand, pressing it to his jaw, his amber eyes blazing. Then I'll make you strong. Dawn spilled through the palace windows, painting the training room in shades of fire and gold. Mira stood at the center of the mat, hands curled into uncertain fists, her borrowed training clothes hanging loose on her frame. Her reflection in the wall-length mirrors looked nothing like a queen, nothing like the girl the Alpha King had claimed. She looked small. Fragile. Out of place. But Xander saw something else. He circled her slowly, barefoot on the mat, every movement controlled, deliberate. His voice carried the weight of command. Again. Mira swung awkwardly, the wooden practice blade whistling clumsily through the air. It slipped from her grip, clattering against the floor. Heat flooded her cheeks. I can't do this. You can, Xander said flatly, picking up the blade and pressing it back into her hands. You're just afraid of failing. Her chest tightened. She wanted to snap back, to remind him she wasn't like him, wasn't strong, wasn't born to fight. But his eyes, burning, relentless, made the words catch in her throat. Hold steady, he instructed, moving behind her. His large hands closed over hers, adjusting her grip, his chest brushing her back. Sparks jolted through her body at the contact, her pulse hammering in her ears. Like this, he murmured, his breath hot against her ear. Power doesn't come from your arms. It comes from your stance. Your center. She swallowed hard, focusing on his voice instead of the heat spreading through her. She shifted her weight, grounding her feet as he'd shown her. Better, he said, stepping back. The sudden absence of his warmth made her shiver. Now again. She swung. This time the blade cut cleaner through the air, steady, controlled. Not perfect, but progress. Her lips parted in surprise. I did it. Xander's mouth curved, just faintly. You're learning. The lesson stretched into hours, stances, strikes, even simple footwork. She stumbled, fell, cursed under her breath more times than she could count. Yet every time she faltered, he was there, pulling her up, steadying her, demanding more. By the time the sun dipped lower, sweat soaked her clothes, her muscles ached, and her hands throbbed from gripping the blade too tightly. Still, a fierce spark lit inside her chest. She wasn't just surviving. She was changing. On their final round, she surprised him. With a desperate burst of determination, Mira feinted left, then lunged right, her shoulder slamming against his chest. He stumbled, just a fraction, but enough that she pinned him to the mat, the wooden blade trembling in her hand as it pressed against his ribs. Both of them froze. His golden eyes locked onto hers, fire and hunger blazing in their depths. Her chest heaved, her body hovering over his, every nerve alight. You're learning, he growled, his voice low and rough. Myra's lips parted, trembling as she whispered back, teach me more. The tea room glittered with crystal chandeliers and fine porcelain, but beneath the polished surface lay a battlefield. Mira sat stiffly at the edge of a long table draped in lace, surrounded by women who had never lifted anything heavier than a jeweled fan. Their gowns shimmered with wealth, their smiles as sharp as daggers. Luna Celeste presided at the head like a queen without a crown. Her scarlet dress clung to her curves, every jewel on her body sparkling like stolen fire. She stirred her tea slowly, eyes fixed on Mira with a sweetness that curdled in the air. "Darling," Celeste drawled, her voice dripping with false warmth. "We are simply delighted you could join us. Aren't we, ladies?" The she-wolves around her tittered on cue, laughter that didn't reach their eyes. Mira forced a small smile, folding her hands in her lap to hide how tightly they trembled. "Tell us," another woman said, tilting her head as though examining a rare insect. "What is it like, being chosen? Do you feel worthy?" Heat crept up Myra's neck. She opened her mouth, but Celeste cut in, her smile widening. "Of course she doesn't. Poor thing can barely hold a tray without spilling." A ripple of laughter followed. "And human blood?" Celeste leaned closer, her voice lowering to a venomous whisper. "So fragile. Do you truly believe you could carry strong pups? That our alpha king would settle for weak offspring?" The words hit like claws raking across her heart. Myra's breath stuttered, her throat dry. She had faced laughter before, sneers before, but never like this. Never with the weight of destiny hanging over her. She tried to speak, tried to summon some fragment of the fire Xander had seen in her, but her voice faltered. I don't know." Celeste's eyes gleamed with triumph. "Of course you don't. You'll never be one of us, Mira. He'll tire of you within a moon." The laughter that followed was softer this time, but sharper, sinking deep into her bones. Mira forced herself to sit tall, refusing to let them see how each word chipped at her resolve. Still, doubt coiled inside her chest like a serpent. Maybe they're right. Maybe I can't be enough. At last, the gathering dissolved, jeweled gowns rustling as the women left in clusters of whispered gossip. Mira remained, her tea untouched, her hands clenched white in her lap. When she returned to Xander later, her steps dragged. He looked up the moment she entered, his wolf already bristling at the scent of her despair. "What happened?" His voice was sharp, dangerous. Mira shook her head, swallowing hard. Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears. Maybe they're right. Maybe I'll never be strong enough. Never be enough for you." The room trembled as his wolf surged forward, fury flashing gold in his eyes. He crossed the distance in 2 strides, cupping her face with rough, reverent hands. "Let me show you," he growled, voice thick with promise. "Exactly how much I want you." The door to Xander's private chambers shut with a heavy thud, sealing them in a world apart from whispers and venom. Candlelight flickered along the walls, painting the room in shades of gold and shadow. The air was thick with the scent of pine, leather, and the faintest trace of smoke, a scent uniquely his. Mira stood near the threshold, her heart hammering against her ribs. She hadn't meant to break, hadn't meant to let Celeste's words unravel her so easily. But here she was, raw, trembling, eyes stinging from doubts she couldn't silence. "I'm not enough," she whispered, barely audible. The Alpha King moved before she could blink. One moment he was across the room, the next his body loomed over hers, the heat of him pressing against her fragile frame. His hands framed her face, rough palms gentle against her skin, forcing her to meet his burning gaze. "You are more than enough," Xander growled, each word dripping with conviction. "Do you think I would risk my crown for weakness? Do you think my wolf would burn for anything less than destiny?" Her breath caught, her lips trembling under the weight of his nearness. "But I'm human." "Human," he echoed, voice thick, almost reverent. "And perfect." The doubt in her chest cracked under the force of his words, and when his lips crashed against hers, it shattered completely. Heat consumed her, wild and intoxicating, as his mouth moved against hers with a hunger she felt down to her bones. The kiss deepened, desperate, claiming. Her hands found the fabric of his shirt, clinging to him as though he were the only thing tethering her to the earth. He lifted her with ease, carrying her across the room, laying her gently against silk sheets that smelled of him. "Mira," he whispered against her throat, his voice rough with restraint. "You are mine." His teeth grazed her skin, sparking the bond that had been simmering since the moment their eyes first met. Her fingers tangled in his hair, her voice breaking with a gasp. "And I'm yours." The mate bond roared to life, flaring between them like lightning, burning away every shadow of doubt. The world outside ceased to exist. No council, no wolves, no Celeste, only this fire, this truth, this undeniable pull between them. Hours blurred into moments, and when at last the frenzy quieted, Mira lay curled against him, his arms wrapped around her as though he would never let her go. His chest rose and fell in a steady rhythm, his lips pressing reverent kisses into her hair. "You are my queen," Xander murmured into the darkness. But as dawn crept toward the horizon, a sharp knock shattered the fragile cocoon of peace. "Alpha," a voice called urgently from beyond the door. "The rogues have your brother. They demand the human girl in exchange." The word struck like ice. Mira sat up, her body still humming from the bond they had sealed, but her blood ran cold at the messenger's cry. Rogues. Xander's brother. An exchange. Xander was already on his feet, muscles taut, fury radiating from him in waves. His golden eyes flared as he yanked open the door. "What did you say?" The guard bowed low, fear thick in his scent. "They've taken Prince Kale, Alpha. They sent word, release the human girl to them, and he lives." Myra's stomach twisted. She barely knew Kale, yet the thought of someone suffering because of her was unbearable. She pulled the sheet around herself, rising on unsteady legs. "Then let me go." Xander turned on her, his expression thunderous. "Never." She flinched at the growl in his voice, but her own words came sharper, steadier than she thought possible. "He's your brother. If they want me, then take me. End this before more lives are lost." He crossed the room in 2 strides, gripping her arms with a force that made her gasp. His voice was low, dangerous. "Do you think I'd sacrifice my mate for anyone? Even for blood? Mira, I will burn their entire pack before I hand you over." Her heart clenched. His protectiveness was fierce, unyielding, but if she stood by and did nothing, Kale would die. She couldn't let that happen. Not when she had a chance to stop it. That night, while Xander raged with his war council, Mira slipped away. Her steps were light, her pulse steady despite the fear gnawing at her ribs. She carried nothing but determination and the fragments of training he drilled into her. The warehouse district reeked of rust and rot, shadows thick between crumbling walls. The rogues waited like carrion birds, their leader stepping forward with a sneer. His eyes gleamed as he looked her over. "So the human comes willingly. How noble." Mira lifted her chin, her voice trembling but loud. "Release Kale. You have me now." The rogues laughed, circling closer. The leader raised his clawed hand. "Pathetic. Do you think you're a queen already? Weak blood can't save a prince." He slashed forward. But Mira moved. Training burned through her muscles, instinct guiding her feet. She ducked, the blow grazing her arm instead of crushing her skull. Pain seared as blood welled, dripping down her sleeve. The rogues inhaled sharply at the scent. And then a roar split the night. Xander. The Alpha King had come, his fury unleashed. The warehouse erupted in chaos the moment Xander arrived. The rogues barely had time to sneer before the Black Wolf was upon them, a living storm of fur and fangs. His roar split the night, shaking glass from the broken windows, sending weaker wolves scrambling in terror. Mira staggered back, clutching her bleeding arm as the battle unfolded around her. She had seen Xander fight before, but never like this. This wasn't the controlled dominance of a king, it was wrath, primal and unchained. He moved like shadow and flame, claws ripping through steel beams as though they were paper, jaws crushing rogues who dared to lunge at him. Bones cracked, blood sprayed, and the scent of violence coated the air so thick it made Myra's throat burn. The rogue leader tried to rally his pack, barking orders, but Xander tore through his men one by one, each kill more brutal than the last. "You hurt what's mine," his voice thundered through the link between wolf and pack, every word dripping with murderous promise. Myra's heart pounded. She should have been afraid of him, of the monster he had become in the heat of battle. Yet she wasn't. Pride surged through her instead, fierce and undeniable. This was her mate. Her king. And he was fighting not just for his brother, but for her. The rogues broke ranks, desperation spilling into their movements. A clawed hand reached for Mira, but she ducked, rolling aside as one of Xander's wolves, his beta, slammed the attacker to the ground. She scrambled to her feet, wincing at the sting in her arm, her training barely holding her steady. At last, the rogue leader made his stand, lunging at Xander with silver blades strapped to his claws. The metal cut deep, slashing across Xander's shoulder. He roared, the sound shaking the walls, and in one devastating strike, he snapped the leader's neck, sending his body crashing into the concrete. Silence followed. The rogues that remained fled into the night, tails between their legs. Victory was theirs, but the price had been steep. Xander stumbled, shifting back into human form, blood slick across his chest. His breaths came ragged, his golden eyes dimming as he fought to stay upright. Mira rushed forward, catching him as his knees buckled. Xander. His weight sagged against her, heavy and terrifying. She pressed her hands against the wound, panic clawing at her throat. His lips brushed her ear, voice raw and fading. "Don't leave me." Tears blurred her vision as she clutched him tighter. "Never," she whispered, even as his body went limp in her arms. The royal infirmary smelled of antiseptic and fear. The soft beep of monitors filled the sterile air, too steady, too calm for the storm inside Myra's chest. Xander lay stretched across the bed, his skin pale beneath the harsh lights, his chest rising shallow and slow. Silver poisoning laced his wounds, turning the edges black, burning through him with every labored breath. Mira sat beside him, her blood-stained dress crumpled, her arm bandaged hastily by the healers. None of it mattered. She hadn't left his side since they carried him in, refusing to be pushed away by doctors or guards. They whispered behind her back, "The human has no place here," but she ignored them all. Her fingers trembled as she brushed damp strands of hair from his forehead. His heat was fading, slipping away, and fear clawed at her ribs. "Stay with me," she whispered, her voice raw. "You don't get to leave. Not now. Not after you've claimed me." The healers worked tirelessly, pouring herbs and magic into his veins, but the silver fought back like venom. They warned her in hushed tones, "He may not wake, not even an alpha king can survive too much silver." But Mira refused to believe them. She leaned closer, her lips against his ear. "The pack needs you. Your brother needs you. I need you, Xander." Her voice broke on the last words, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Do you hear me? I need you." Her hand slid into his, small against his broad palm. She squeezed tightly, as though sheer will could tether him to this world. Her tears dampened the sheets, each drop falling with the weight of desperation. For endless minutes, there was nothing but the beep of the monitors, the hiss of breath, the cruel silence of his stillness. Then, his fingers twitched. Mira gasped, her heart leaping. "Xander? His golden eyes fluttered open, dim but alive. He turned his head, slow and heavy, until his gaze found hers. A weak smile curved his lips. "Did you think death could take me from you?" His voice was a rasp, but it was his. Relief broke her, sobs shaking her shoulders as she pressed her forehead against his hand. "Don't ever do that to me again." But before joy could take root, angry voices erupted beyond the infirmary doors. Growls and accusations, the council demanding answers. "Alpha or not," one voice snarled, "he endangered us all for a human." Myra's breath hitched, fear and determination colliding. Xander was awake, but their battle was far from over. The council chamber was carved from stone older than the kingdom itself. Torches lined the walls, their flames hissing and crackling, casting shadows across the circle of elders. At the center burned the council fire, its smoke spiraling upward like a living thing, heavy with judgment. Mira stood alone on the cold floor, the weight of 100 hostile eyes pressing down on her. Her bandaged arm throbbed, but she refused to flinch. If she showed weakness now, they would tear her apart faster than any rogue ever could. Elder Marcus, the oldest of them all, rose slowly from his seat, his staff striking the ground with a thunderous crack. His voice carried the weight of centuries. "You are human. An outsider. And yet, the Alpha King claims you as his mate." A murmur rippled through the chamber, anger, disbelief, disgust. Another elder leaned forward, eyes narrowing like blades. "Because of you, the Alpha risked his life. Because of you, the rogues dared to challenge us. You bring chaos, girl." Mira swallowed hard, her heart pounding, but she kept her chin high. "The rogues attacked because they are cowards, not because of me. I didn't choose this bond, it chose me." A growl rumbled through the chamber. "Convenient words. Do you think destiny excuses your weakness?" Her hands curled into fists at her sides. Every insult she had endured since childhood echoed in their sneers, but something inside her had changed. Training with Xander. Standing her ground against rogues. Watching him nearly die for her. She wasn't the same girl who had carried trays through the Gala. "I fought beside him," she said, her voice steady, ringing against the stone walls. "I bled for him. I would die for him if it meant protecting his family, his pack. Can any of you say the same?" The words stunned them into silence. Even the flames seemed to pause, flickering low as though listening. But Marcus's staff struck again, louder this time. "You are bold, human. But boldness is not strength. The council will decide whether you are worthy to stand at the Alpha King's side." At that moment, the chamber doors swung open. Xander entered, his presence filling the room like a storm. Pale from his wounds yet burning with authority, he strode toward the center, golden eyes blazing. The elders turned as one, their judgment sharp. Marcus lifted his staff high. "What says the Alpha King? Do you defy the council for this human?" Every eye shifted to Xander. And Myra's breath caught, her fate hanging on his next words. The council chamber vibrated with tension as Xander strode to the center, his presence silencing even the most defiant growls. He wore no crown, no armor, only the raw authority of the Alpha King, a power that pulsed in every step. His golden eyes locked on Mira, then swept across the circle of elders. "She is my mate," he said, his voice low but carrying like thunder through the stone walls. "Chosen not by politics, nor by bloodlines, but by the bond the moon herself forged." Gasps and snarls rippled around the chamber. Elder Marcus slammed his staff. "You risked your throne, your pack, your own blood for a human girl. Where is her worth, Alpha?" Xander's jaw tightened. He turned, gesturing toward Mira with a sharp sweep of his hand. "Her worth? She fought rogues with nothing but the training I gave her. She bled to save my brother. She stayed by my side when Silver threatened to kill me, when even some of you whispered it would be easier if I did not rise again. The words cracked through the air, leaving silence in their wake. Xander stepped closer to the flames, their light painting his skin in molten gold. Courage is not born in noble bloodlines. Loyalty does not come from power. Mira has both, more than wolves twice her size, more than Lunas born to privilege. She is mine, and that makes her the strongest among you. A rumble of agreement spread through the crowd of lower-ranking wolves gathered at the edges, though the elders bristled, their pride stung. Then Luna Celeste's voice sliced through the quiet, sharp as silver. Courage does not make a queen. She rose from her seat, her scarlet gown blazing in the firelight. What of the old prophecies? What of wolf bloodlines destined to keep our kind strong? Will you ignore centuries of tradition for a servant with human veins? Her words struck the chamber like stones thrown into still water. Murmurs rose, elders nodding, uncertainty spreading like wildfire. Myra's stomach twisted. She stood tall, but her hands trembled at her sides. Was Celeste right? Could courage alone ever be enough in a world ruled by ancient bloodlines? Xander's gaze never wavered. He looked at Celeste with the weight of command, his voice sharp as steel. Tradition is nothing if it blinds us to truth. I do not need a queen born of prophecy. I need a queen born of fire, and I have found her. The fire crackled, throwing sparks into the air. But the whispers did not stop. And in the silence that followed, a new unease stirred, one that spoke not of rejection, but of secrets buried deeper than any council chamber could hold. The palace archives lay deep beneath the throne room, carved into the bedrock itself. Few wolves ever descended these stairs. The air grew colder with every step, carrying the musk of dust, parchment, and secrets too heavy for daylight. Mira followed close behind Xander, her fingers trailing against the damp stone walls, her pulse quickening. Torchlight flickered as Xander pushed open a massive iron door. Inside, shelves towered like ancient trees, groaning under the weight of scrolls and tomes bound in cracked leather. Symbols older than language marked the spines, glowing faintly as though the words themselves remembered their power. Mira shivered. What is this place? The truth, Xander replied, his voice echoing in the vast chamber. The history they don't share with the council. The bloodlines they fear. He led her to a table in the center, sweeping aside layers of dust to unroll a faded scroll. The parchment crackled under his hands. Strange runes spilled across it, curling like vines. Mira leaned closer, her heart pounding. Xander's finger traced the lines. These prophecies speak of more than wolf blood. They tell of unions between wolves and humans, bonds that forged queens stronger than any purebred Luna. My great-grandmother was one of them. She carried human blood, hidden by those who feared it. Mira blinked, her breath catching. Human? He nodded, his gaze steady. The council would call it weakness. But here, it is written as destiny. Her stomach twisted, doubt warring with hope. She wanted to believe him, wanted to believe she wasn't an accident, wasn't a mistake, but the words on the page were indecipherable to her. I can't even read this. How do I know it's real? Xander studied her, then pointed to another scroll stacked against the wall. The parchment was brittle with age, its edges fraying like old lace. As he unrolled it, Myra's breath hitched. Painted in faded ink across the page was a face. Her face. The same dark hair. The same eyes. The same fragile strength etched into features that mirrored her own. Mira staggered back, her chest tight, her knees threatening to give way. How is this possible? She whispered, her voice breaking. Xander caught her hand, anchoring her against the weight of the revelation. His amber eyes burned with conviction. Because you were never meant to be ordinary, Mira. You were meant to change everything. The torches flickered, shadows curling along the walls like watchful eyes. For the first time, Mira wondered if destiny had been hunting her long before Xander ever had. The tower was older than the palace itself, its stones blackened by centuries of storms. Mira climbed the spiral steps beside Xander, her chest tight with unease. The higher they went, the sharper the air smelled, sage, herbs, and the faint bite of smoke. At the top, a wooden door creaked open on its own, as if pulled by invisible hands. Inside, the chamber glowed with the strange light of crystals suspended from the ceiling. Bundles of dried plants hung from beams, and bowls of ash and bone crowded low tables. The seer waited in the center, her back bent but her presence fierce, her eyes clouded yet bright with something that saw far beyond flesh. "You bring her at last," the seer rasped, her voice like dry leaves. "The human who is not human." Mira froze. "What do you mean?" The seer beckoned her closer. "Give me your hand." Xander stiffened, but Mira stepped forward, offering her palm. The seer's fingers, cold and bony, closed over hers. A shiver raced through Myra's body as the old woman inhaled deeply, as though drawing the truth straight from her blood. Then the seer's eyes snapped open, glowing faintly silver. "Yes. The bloodline endures. Descendant of the first Luna, the human who stood beside wolves when the moon chose her. Her daughters were hidden, their blood concealed through generations, to keep them safe from those who feared their power." Myra's heart thudded painfully. "You're saying I'm her descendant?" The seer nodded slowly, reverently. "Not just her descendant. The bond you share with the Alpha is no accident, it is the fulfillment of prophecy. You are the rarest queen of all, the Silver Luna." Xander's hand tightened around Myra's shoulder, steadying her as the weight of the words pressed down. His wolf hummed with triumph, "Mate, destined, ours." But the seer's expression darkened. "Know this, the awakening of your true power demands a price. Blood willingly shed. Royal blood. Without it, the prophecy withers, and the Silver Luna becomes nothing but a shadow." Myra's throat went dry. She pulled her hand back, shaking her head. "I don't understand. What kind of price?" The seer's eyes dimmed again, her voice lowering to a whisper. "The crown does not come freely, child. Destiny never does." The crystals pulsed faintly, their silver glow wrapping Mira in a halo that felt both holy and terrifying. For the first time, Mira realized her greatest fear wasn't that she was unworthy, but that she might be far more than she ever wanted to be. The palace gardens glowed under the midnight moon, their roses heavy with dew. Mira walked the stone path alone, her mind still tangled with the seer's words. Royal blood must be shed willingly. The phrase gnawed at her, twisting her stomach into knots. She never saw the shadow until it moved. A flash of silver caught the moonlight, too quick, too close. Mira stumbled back just as Luna Celeste stepped from the hedges, her scarlet gown whispering against the grass. In her hand gleamed a dagger, its blade etched with runes that shimmered cruelly. "You should have left when you had the chance," Celeste hissed, her beauty warped by rage. "If I cannot be queen, then no one will." Myra's heart hammered, her breath catching in her throat. "Celeste, don't do this." But the other woman's eyes were wild, her smile sharp with madness. "Do you think fate chose you? A servant? A human? You'll never be worthy. You'll destroy him, destroy all of us." She lunged. The dagger sliced the air. Mira threw herself aside, the blade grazing her shoulder. Pain flared, hot and sharp, but training guided her feet. She dropped low, dodging another slash, the weeks with Xander whispering in her muscles. Celeste laughed, the sound unhinged. "Look at you, thinking you can fight me. You'll bleed like the rest of your kind." Mira gritted her teeth, blocking a second strike with her forearm, ignoring the sting. Her fear burned away, replaced by something steadier, determination. She wasn't the trembling servant in the Gala anymore. She was Xander's mate. She was the Silver Luna. The dagger slashed again, but Mira twisted, driving her elbow into Celeste's ribs. The Luna stumbled, eyes blazing with fury, and swung wildly. This time, the blade cut deep across Myra's palm as she caught the strike, pushing it away with a cry of pain. Her blood splattered across the stone path, dripping onto the carved symbols that lined the garden's ancient altar. The earth shuddered. Celeste froze, eyes widening. No, no. Silver light burst upward from the stone, wrapping around Mira like fire and moonlight combined. The dagger clattered from Celeste's hand as the air shook with power. Mira fell to her knees, clutching her bleeding hand, light pouring from her veins, burning brighter with every heartbeat. The prophecy had awakened. Celeste's scream tore through the night, drowned out by the roar of magic as destiny claimed its price. The garden trembled as though the earth itself recognized what had been unleashed. Myra's blood glowed where it stained the altar stones, spreading in silver rivulets that pulsed with life. The air thickened, heavy with power, every breath crackling like lightning before a storm. Mira gasped, clutching her chest as the energy surged through her veins. Her skin shimmered faintly, light radiating from beneath as if she carried the moon inside her. The pain of her wound vanished, replaced by something far greater, burning, reshaping, rewriting what she was. Celeste stumbled back, eyes wide with horror. This is impossible. A howl tore from Myra's throat, raw and primal, though she had no wolf form, at least, not the kind the pack had ever known. Silver light erupted around her, lifting her from the ground. Her body arched as her bones shifted, not into a wolf's shape, but something larger, more ethereal. When she landed, the gardens were bathed in brilliance. Her fur shimmered like spun starlight, her eyes glowing with galaxies of silver fire. Her form was wolf-like, yet not bound by flesh alone, translucent, radiant, woven of moonlight and legend. The Silver Luna reborn. Every wolf within miles felt it. Heads lifted. Howls echoed through the night, trembling with awe and fear. The bond of the pack bent toward her, acknowledging a power older than thrones, older than crowns. Mira stood taller, the light of her form scattering shadows with every breath. She turned her gaze towards Celeste, who collapsed to her knees, trembling. The once proud Luna whispered, broken, "What, are you?" Myra's voice resonated, layered with power and something divine. "What I was always meant to be." The storm of magic surged outward, rippling across the palace grounds. Roses bloomed in seconds, the fountains overflowed with silver water, and the very air hummed with life. Wolves who had mocked her now pressed their foreheads to the earth, unable to resist the call of destiny. Yet within the brilliance, Mira trembled. The power was intoxicating, but frightening, every heartbeat stronger, every breath sharper, as if she might burst apart under its weight. Am I still myself? The thought echoed faintly, lost in the roar of magic. Could she remain Mira, the servant girl, the woman Xander loved? Or would this storm consume her, leaving only legend in her place? From afar, she heard her name. A voice that cut through the chaos, grounding her. Xander. Her luminous eyes flickered, searching the garden for him, clinging to that single tether as the storm threatened to sweep her away. The great hall had never been so silent. Every alpha, every elder, every wolf of rank filled the chamber, their eyes fixed on the figure that radiated silver light in their midst. Mira stood at the center, her new form shimmering with starlit fur, eyes blazing with galaxies. The air trembled with her presence, bending to her will like reeds before a storm. They feared her. They revered her. And she could feel it all, the weight of their awe pressing into her bones, the bond of the pack tugging at her, begging her to lead. With this power, she could rule not only the werewolves but every supernatural creature that bowed beneath the moon's gaze. The thought whispered to her, seductive and dangerous. Take it. Be more than queen. Be eternal. Mira swayed, breath ragged. The storm inside her urged her to rise higher, to claim everything that lay within reach. She saw herself standing above them all, untouchable, the world bending at her feet. But then, her gaze found him. Xander. He stood at the edge of the light, battered but unbroken, golden eyes burning with something deeper than awe, love. Real, unshaken, the kind of devotion that didn't bow to power. His chest rose and fell with uneven breaths, his body weakened by silver wounds, yet his eyes never left hers. He looked at her not as a goddess, not as a legend, but as Mira. Her heart lurched. The power roared inside her, urging, tempting, demanding. But his love cut through it, a single tether anchoring her to herself. With trembling effort, Mira closed her eyes. She thought of the servant girl at the gala, humiliated and small. She thought of the Alpha King who had seen her when no one else had, who had chosen her not for prophecy or politics, but because his wolf had whispered mine. And when she opened her eyes again, the galaxies in her gaze softened. Slowly, painfully, she let the storm ebb. The starlit fur dissolved into skin, the radiance fading until she stood human once more, trembling, exhausted, but free. She staggered, and Xander caught her, pulling her against his chest as if she had always belonged there. Will you still have me? Mira whispered, her voice small, fragile against the echoes of her power. Xander's lips curved, fierce and certain. He pressed his forehead to hers. Always. The hall erupted in murmurs, some in outrage, others in awe. Mira had forsaken the crown of gods for the bond of wolves. And in that choice, she became not less, but more. The amphitheater stretched wide beneath the night sky, carved from ancient stone that had witnessed centuries of coronations. Tonight, it belonged to them. Wolves filled every tier, their howls rising into the silver-washed air, a chorus that shook the earth. The full moon hung heavy above, casting its blessing upon the gathering. Mira stood at Xander's side, her heart racing as she looked out over the sea of faces. Once, she had been nothing but a servant, invisible and scorned. Now, thousands of wolves bowed their heads to her, their voices united in reverence. The crown of the Luna rested on a velvet pillow before her, silver gleaming with the glow of prophecy fulfilled. Xander lifted it, his hand steady despite the wounds that still marked his body. His golden eyes met hers, filled with pride, tenderness, and unshakable certainty. You chose me over unlimited power, he said, his voice carrying across the amphitheater. And I choose you over everything. The words pierced Myra's chest, filling her with warmth that chased away every lingering shadow of doubt. She bowed her head as he placed the crown upon her, its weight solid, real, undeniable. The moment it touched her hair, the crowd erupted, howls, cheers, and voices chanting her name. Myra's throat tightened. She raised her hand, not as the servant she had once been, but as the Luna she had become. The bond between her and the pack thrummed, not forced, not demanded, but freely given. She felt their acceptance, their awe, and for the first time, their faith. Xander took her hands, his voice softening, meant for her alone though the whole world heard it. Until the last star dies. Until the moon falls dark. Until wolves forget how to howl, I am yours. Her eyes shimmered as she whispered back, and I am yours. Forever. The mate bond surged, glowing between them, not as blinding power but as steady, unbreakable light. A promise, a vow, a legend born in truth. The amphitheater shook with howls, a chorus of unity and devotion. Wolves pressed their foreheads to the earth, bowing to their king and queen under the silver moon. Mira looked up at the sky, the crown cool against her brow, Xander's hand warm in hers. She had sacrificed the crown of gods for the bond of love, and in doing so, she had claimed something greater. Together, they would heal their fractured world. Together, they would stand against whatever ancient enemies rose next. And together, they would endure, king and queen, bound by moonlight and love eternal.